What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to our Bible study. Okay, so we've got Exodus 39 this time around, and we've finished up reading about the construction of the tabernacle, but now we're getting into the priestly garments and all that kind of stuff. I had almost forgotten that was a thing that still needed to be done in this whole process. But here it is. So, yeah. Guess we'll be talking about the priests' clothes and stuff that they wear whenever they are serving in the tabernacle. So, while not directly talking about the making of the tabernacle, we're still talking about making things for the tabernacle, in a sense. But anyway, okay, let's just get right into this. Exodus 39. The craftsmen made beautiful, sacred garments of blue, purple, and scarlet cloth, clothing for Aaron to wear while ministering in the holy place, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Bezalel made the ephod of finely woven linen and embroidered it with gold and with blue, purple, and scarlet thread. He made gold thread by hammering out thin sheets of gold and cutting it into fine strands. With great skill and care, he worked it into a fine linen with blue, purple, and scarlet thread. Into the fine linen with the blue, purple, and scarlet thread. Sorry. Footnote here at Bezalel is probably just going to say he. Yep. But again, Bezalel was the last person mentioned by name. Actually, no. No, he wasn't. Because they were talking about the gathering of the materials and counting it, so no. But, again, if there's any he who would be making this stuff, it's probably Bezalel, because he's been the one in charge of all of this so far. But yeah. So we're getting into, blue, purple, and scarlet cloth. It doesn't really say exactly what the combination of those was and how they were laid out, so to speak, for these garments. But still, especially with the gold being in there, these be fancy. Anyway, I don't really have any other thoughts at the moment. So, verse 4. The ephod consisted of two pieces, front and back, joined at the shoulders with two shoulder pieces. The decorative sash was made of the same materials, finely woven linen, embroidered with gold and with blue, purple, and scarlet thread, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. They mounted the two onyx stones in settings of gold filigree. Stones were engraved with the names of the tribes of Israel, just as a seal is engraved. He fastened these stones on the shoulder pieces of the ephod as a reminder that the priest represents the people of Israel. All this was done just as the Lord had commanded Moses. I'm realizing I may have read this section a little weird. I think it's just trying to say that, it was that these stones were engraved with the names in the same way that a seal might be engraved. A seal usually used, I would assume, for kind of official things, like a king would have used for important documents and things like that, perhaps. So we've got the whole ephod thing. So there's a front and a back piece and shoulder pieces, and I assume the whatever attachments kind of connected the front and the back also kind of went through or connected to the shoulders. So yeah, anyway, So, I think... Sorry. So I think the onyx stones would have been on the shoulder pieces. Yeah, it says he fastened these stones on the shoulder pieces. So, not only is it, a reminder that the priest represents the people, it's almost, because of the stone there, it's almost like there was a physical weight of, carrying the responsibility, but also the burdens of the people. Just a little extra thought that I had related to that. I mean, a few chapters back, I kind of had a thought, related to Aaron or whoever the high priest was later, with the turban and the way that was made and designed, basically saying that the high priest would actually take on the sins of the people of Israel while having the priest himself still counted as, righteous in God's eyes, or right with God, I think might have been the terminology that was used in this translation. Sort of a similarity to Jesus later on. But that was just kind of another connection that I made. So similarly, I guess the stones for the ephods might have also served a reminder of that weight, that sin, that burden that the high priest would have carried. But anyway, okay, moving along before I completely jack up my throat. Verse 8. Bezalel made the chest piece with great skill and care. He made it to match the ephod, using finely woven linen, embroidered with gold and with blue, purple, and scarlet thread. He made the chest piece of a single piece of cloth, folded to form a pouch 9 inches square. They mounted 4 rows of gemstones on it. The first row contained a red carnelian, a pale green peridot, and an emerald. The second row contained a turquoise, a blue lapis lazuli, and a white moonstone. The third row contained an orange jacinth, an agate, and a purple amethyst. The fourth row contained a blue-green beryl, an onyx, and a green jasper. All these stones were set in gold filigree. Each stone represented one of the 12 sons of Israel, and the name of that tribe was engraved on it like a seal. Footnote here at gemstones. The identification of some of these gemstones is uncertain. Okay, so just kind of saying, this is what we think the different gemstones were, but we're not 100% sure for all of them. It was probably fairly well known what colors the stones were, and maybe the translators, went with prior understandings and or translations of what those might have been, but also just like based on the color, kind of logically thinking through, okay, maybe this is what that could have been based on the color, as well as, prior understandings of what those might have been. Footnote there is just about the actual Hebrew word for the dimensions. And I think, so the chest piece, I think, was supposed to go underneath the ephod, if I remember right. But anyway, yeah. Still am kind of wondering what the different, which gemstone might have represented which tribe of Israel. Maybe that gets explained at some point, but I still have yet to read anything that says that outright. But anyway, it does say that each tribe's name was engraved on the gemstones. So there had to be an association there, but it doesn't say which one was which. Maybe that's something I can find out from a different source later. Anyway, okay. Moving on to verse 15, I guess. To attach the chest piece to the ephod, they made braided cords of pure gold thread. They also made 2 settings of gold filigree and 2 gold rings, and attached them to the top corners of the chest piece. They tied the 2 gold cords to the rings on the chest piece. They tied the other ends of the cords to the gold settings on the shoulder pieces of the ephod. Then they made 2 more gold rings and attached them to the inside edges of the chest piece next to the ephod. Then they made 2 more gold rings and attached them to the front of the ephod, below the shoulder pieces, just above the knot where the decorative sash was fastened to the ephod. They attached the bottom rings of the chest piece to the rings on the ephod with blue cords. In this way, the chest piece was held securely to the ephod above the decorative sash. All this was done just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So maybe the chest piece was over top of ephod. Yeah, because if that was going to have all the gemstones and stuff on it, you'd want that to be, the outer layer, I would think. Also, sorry for the, slight awkward pause delay thing as I was reading. Like, the fact that 19 and 20 start off, pretty much exactly the same way, and they're, barely, separated from each other. It just... I was like, wait, did I read that right? Did I accidentally loop back around again? But, yeah, anyway. So there's all your information on, trying to fasten it all together. Alright. I think I'm just going to move right along. I don't really have any other particular thoughts to add. So, verse 22. Bezalel made the robe that is worn with the ephod from a single piece of blue woven cloth, with an opening for Aaron's head in the middle of it. The opening was reinforced with a woven collar, so it would not tear. They made pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and attached them to the hem of the robe. They also made bells of pure gold, and placed them between the pomegranates along the hem of the robe, with bells and pomegranates alternating all around the hem. This robe was to be worn whenever the priest ministered before the Lord, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Yeah, it was mentioned in a previous chapter more specifically that, the noise of the bells and the pomegranates were kind of to, alert the Lord, so to speak, of, Aaron entering the holy place and entering into God's presence, essentially. I guess in a similar way to how you have the comparison that came to my head right away was how you have a security system where, if somebody enters with a certain key or whatever, that they're fine. But then if they don't have that key, either they can't get in or it triggers some sort of alarm or something. But anyway, so the robe was blue. Doesn't really say what shade of blue, but still. A blue robe reinforced collar, and then pomegranates and bells hanging around the hem at the bottom of it. Again, to make all the little noises or whatever. To kind of alert, well, the Lord, but also probably the other people that the high priest was there. Footnote, meaning of the Hebrew is uncertain. So whatever Hebrew was used to talk about the woven collar, it's not totally sure, but if you're talking about, making it so a certain part wouldn't tear, I guess that kind of makes sense. I mean, they had to make an opening for Aaron's head. So if you didn't do something to reinforce that, it was already cut and would have been pretty easy to rip from that point. Anyway. Alrighty. Gonna move on to verse 27. They made tunics for Aaron and his sons from fine linen cloth. The turban and the special head coverings were made of fine linen, and the undergarments were also made of finely woven linen. The sashes were made of finely woven linen and embroidered with blue, purple, and scarlet thread, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Finally, they made the sacred medallion, the badge of holiness, of pure gold. They engraved it like a seal with these words, "Holy to the Lord." They attached the medallion with a blue cord to Aaron's turban, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So that turban was what I mentioned earlier when talking about the high priest taking on the sins of the people. Because that medallion with those words were on it, though, it was like a reminder that even though this person is taking on other people's sins, it's not counted against the priest. Kind of like how, even though Jesus took on the sins of the world as he died on the cross, there was still the inscription there on the cross that said he was the Son of God, or whatever. The words on there essentially, essentially served as a similar reminder to where it was like, yeah, this is still God's son, though, where, like, the sins of other people that he is taking on are not being counted against him. So that seems to wrap up stuff for the clothing. And then we get to this last part, which, just because of the layout of it, I think I'm just gonna go right on through that and kind of then wrap things up and give my final thoughts afterwards. Alrighty, so here we go, verse 32. And so at last the tabernacle was finished. The Israelites had done everything just as the Lord had commanded Moses. As the Lord had commanded Moses. And they brought the entire tabernacle to Moses. The sacred tent with all its furnishings, clasps, frames, crossbars, posts, and bases. The tent coverings of tanned ram skins and fine goatskin leather. The inner curtain to shield the ark. The Ark of the Covenant and its carrying poles. The ark's cover, the place of atonement. The table and all its utensils. The bread of the presence. The pure gold lampstand with its symmetrical lamp cups, all its accessories, and the olive oil for lighting. The gold altar, the anointing oil and fragrant incense, the curtain for the entrance of the sacred tent, the bronze altar, the bronze grating and its carrying poles and utensils, the wash basin with its stand, the curtains for the walls of the courtyard, the posts and their bases, the curtain for the entrance to the courtyard, the ropes and tent pegs, all the furnishings to be used in worship at the tabernacle, the beautifully stitched garments for the priests to wear while ministering in the holy place, the sacred garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments for his sons to wear as they minister as priests. So the people of Israel followed all the Lord's instructions to Moses. Then Moses inspected all their work. When he found that it had been done just as the Lord had commanded him, he blessed them. So, again, just kind of going back over everything that it's been talking about the previous few chapters with the making of the tabernacle and its related items. And I think this order here is like exactly the order in which all that was made, or at least the order it was all mentioned in the past few chapters. And if it's not 100% the same, it's pretty darn close. Covenant there just says Ark of the Testimony. That's been a common footnote the past few chapters. Just going back to the original Hebrew, it is generally used one way or the other. Like, they're kind of interchangeable. But I guess testimony has a bit of a different meaning, or at least a different possible meaning in English than covenant does. So I think in order to convey, in English words, what the Hebrew might have actually meant, that they use covenant here instead of testimony. And not just here, but, throughout the Bible, in this translation at least. Kind of similar with tabernacle, in that case wanting to specify, like, the, tent of meeting that was commanded and designed by God, rather than, like, the other tent of meeting, because it had to clarify that at one point, because there was a different tent of meeting before this, at least, that Moses used to meet with the people. Or maybe that was where he went to meet with God. I don't know. Anyway, point is, different tent of meeting than a different one that Moses had previously used. So they're done with all the tabernacle stuff, and Moses has checked it out, made sure that it was, up to specifications as instructed by God. And since it was all good, it just says Moses blessed them. It doesn't really give details on, like, in what way or any of the words he might have used to bless them. But essentially, I think that was Moses kind of giving the okay on all of it and saying, all right, good job. It's all how it's supposed to be. So, yeah, I guess that wraps up Exodus 39. All right, so that's going to do it for now. I guess I think that pretty much is everything, like, even related to the tabernacle. I realize, this chapter was more so about the priestly garments, but it's still kind of related because that's what they would wear when they're serving in the tabernacle and whatnot. But anyway, so yeah, not as sure where things are going from here, but maybe, we actually start getting to them leaving Mount Sinai and heading toward the Promised Land soon. Anyway. You'll just have to tune in next time to see where things go. Or, read your own Bible and just, take it in that way. Anyway, that's it for now. So, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description to get info on other social media pages. And leave comments down below, all that, with any thoughts you have. So yeah, that's it. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next one. But until then, stay cool, people.